Today I'm going to model and walk you through how to do a soapstone. A soapstone is basically a method that is used probably in lieu of like a close reading. When you do a close reading, it's an awful lot of writing and annotating around the article. So a soapstone, which is very, very similar to that, but it's less writing because we are going to use highlighters. So go ahead and have some highlighters near you and make sure you grabbed a blank copy of the soapstone from the purple basket. You can go ahead and write your name on it, and we're going to keep this in the notes section of your binder. So if you want up at the top, you're more than welcome to go ahead and put your name, and the fact that we're also going to keep this in notes might be a good idea just to remind yourself. Remember, as always, when you are taught something new in a video by me, the point in the video is that you are able to pause, write down anything, go at your own pace, rewind, listen to something that I said again, however many times, including even after today. This is a nice reference for you to have. So remember to pause this video and take notes and go at your own pace as we talk about how to do a soapstone. So a soapstone basically is an acronym, and the S stands for subject, the O stands for occasion, the A stands for audience, and then if we move down a bit, you will see that the P will stand for purpose, and the S will then stand for speakers. The ONE, that part does not stand. That's not part of the acronym. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. You have already read the article about Emmett Till. You just got done listening, or maybe you read it yourself. Either way, you are familiar with the article. This was your first article introduction to Emmett Till and his story and what happened to him. So as we work on the soapstone together, I'll also be able to talk to you about him. His story is definitely one of the saddest stories on our time wall that we have in our classroom to discuss in our civil rights unit. So I always think, when we go through this, that it's really important to acknowledge that it's less writing and you're going to be doing a lot of highlighting. And colors are going to be assigned to the soapstone. So that is something that I definitely want in your notes. So what I'm going to have you do is take a highlighter, take the yellow highlighter and just put, you don't need to shade in the entire box. Don't drain the highlighter. Just put a little yellow dot where it says text support, because anytime we find evidence that proves the subject, we're going to use the color yellow. And you can go ahead and use, now I don't have pink on my program, so this is red, but make sure you get the pink highlighter and just make a pink little dot right here, because anytime we find evidence in the article that shows the occasion, we're going to highlight that evidence in the article pink. Next, you can grab green, just make a little green dot here. Whenever we find evidence that proves the type of audience that would be probably having this article geared towards, we will highlight that evidence green. And purpose, go ahead and grab blue, and you can just make a little highlighting dot color here of blue. When we look for purpose, we will be highlighting that information blue. And go ahead and grab the orange highlighter and make an orange circle right here. Whenever we find evidence for the speaker, we'll be highlighting it orange. And then you can go ahead and grab purple and make a little purple circle right here. And every single time we find evidence that proves the tone, we will highlight that evidence in the article purple. This is the best way to do it because it's less work on you. Think about it. You're highlighting the evidence. It is so much better than having to write out the example of evidence that you find in the box. So highlighting the evidence will definitely be in your favor. All right, so let's start working on this together. Remember, I'm showing you how to do it the first time. During our civil rights movement, when you get a new article, you will be asked to do a soapstone to the article, and you will be doing it on your own. This is the only time that you're going to get my help. So the whole point in today's class is you learning how to do a soapstone so that when asked to do it alone, you're going to know what to do. All right, so let's find the subject first. To find the subject, please use these little questions that I wrote, because if you answer these little questions, it will lead you to the right answer. So what is the subject of this piece? How do you know? Well, I think we can all agree that the subject is about Emmett Till, and Emmett Till, really I think we need to add it's about the murder of Emmett Till, and the effects that it had. Okay, so let's go ahead and say that the subject, you're writing this down right now. You're going to write down that the subject is the murder of Emmett Till and the effects that it had on our world. Now we have to go back into the article and find examples of the subject. For me, you always have to find 2 examples and highlight them yellow. So I think everybody could agree that we would highlight the title, Emmett Till. I think you can agree that that very first sentence could be highlighted yellow. And that'll work, right? Because I told you we had to have 2 pieces of evidence. Even the name right there you could highlight. Okay, so once we have 2 things that we highlighted yellow, we're done finding evidence. We've proven the subject is Emmett Till. Okay, so let's go back and see what the next one is. Next is occasion, and you needed the, let's see here, pink, right? The pink highlighter. And I didn't have pink, so I was using red. All right. Occasion is what may have prompted the author to write this piece. What led to its publication? Why was this article written? Okay, why was this article written? So you have to ask yourself, did something happen that gave a need for this article to come about? And honestly, I feel like it is to teach others about Emmett Till's murder and the effects that it had on the movement. So make sure you write down what I have. It's to teach others about Emmett Till's murder and how it affected the movement. I just abbreviate Emmett Till's name, E.T., so that I don't have to keep writing it out all the time. So I feel what prompted the publication of this article, why did the author write it? I think it was to teach people and to help people understand how it affected the movement, because his death has a great impact on the movement. So now we have to go and find evidence. So take your pink highlighter and let's go back to the article, and now we're going to be highlighting anything pink that shows us anything that's helping us understand that Emmett Till died and his effect has a great meaning for our movement. So I'm skimming through here. And I think I'm going to highlight, remember, I don't have pink, so I'm just kind of using red, but make sure you have the pink highlighter. I think I'm going to highlight that his body was discovered, because that would be evidence that proved he was murdered. So, but that wasn't the only part to my answer. I said that it was to teach about Emmett Till's murder and the effects on the movement. So now I have to go find something to highlight that shows he affected the movement. And I know exactly what sentence I'm going to highlight pink. it would be this sentence because it's underneath the subheading, a symbol for civil rights. So how did he affect the civil rights movement? Well, because it was the most important catalyst, if you will, of the civil rights movement. This is a great sentence to use for evidence. So I would highlight that pink. And that would give me 2. And we said that as long as you had 2 pieces of evidence, you could be done. All right, so now you can grab your green highlighter, and we're going to go ahead and move on to audience. What assumptions can you make about the audience? Who was the document created for? And, honestly, I feel like this document is created for pretty much anybody that can read. Anybody could be interested in this topic. However, there is something that caught my attention that maybe you skimmed over. Anybody who's familiar with this program called Commons Lit is an education program that teachers use for students. So when I see that, I would probably highlight this green because it proves to me that the audience for this particular article, Jessica McBurney, she is writing for Common Lit, and Common Lit is used for students. So I think I am going to write down my answer here. I'm going to write down that this is most likely, your audience is most likely going to be students because it comes from Common Lit, and I just happen to know what Common Lit is because I'm a teacher. So I'm showing you and sharing that with you. Whenever you get an article from Common Lit, you will know that the audience is definitely for students. So highlight Common Lit green. I also caught this. As you read, note the racial climate of the South in which Emmett was killed. Who is you? That would be the student, right? So I think you should highlight that part of the sentence green, and that will give us our 2 pieces of evidence that prove this article was written for students. All right, now we are filling out the section for purpose. So grab the blue highlighter, and when you look for purpose, again, look how I'm using these questions over here. They guide me straight to the right answer. What is the speaker's purpose? What seems to be the emotional state of the speaker? How is the speaker trying to spark a reaction in the audience? How is this document supposed to make you feel? So the purpose, I think, of this article is definitely to inform. Do you guys remember that acronym when you were little, probably in elementary school? You know what? Since this is going to end up being your notes, I definitely want the answer inform. But since these are going to be your notes, I would write the acronym PI out to the side. Remember what P stands for? P stands for persuade, inform, and entertain. So honestly, it's hard for me to do it because I'm using my finger to write on this thing. But you have a pencil. I would write, if I were you, I would write like persuade out off to the side here because you can do it. You have room. And then the I stands for inform, and the E stands for entertainment. I would write those out just so you remember. So whenever you get to purpose, you're going to have 3 possible answers. You're either going to write down the purpose of the article is to persuade, the purpose of the article is to inform, or your answer would be the purpose of the article is to entertain. It's going to be one of those 3. So if you write PI off to the side, that might kind of remind you what you should write. Okay, so now we got to find evidence. I got to find evidence that, the author is trying to inform readers of the racial climate in the South, during that time, and therefore what happened to Emmett. So because it was so ugly in the South, I think Jessica McBurney is trying to make the reader understand the ugliness in the South, because Emmett came from the North, and he did not think that it was going to be as bad as it was. So things that he did, or ways that he acted, mannerisms that he had, all of that was acceptable in the North. But when he came to the South, it was not. And I think the author, Jessica McBurney, is definitely trying to let us know, that it was ugly down there. And she wants us to understand that that's why what happened to Emmett happened. So we have to go and find some evidence that we can highlight blue in the article that shows she's trying to help us understand just how bad it was in the South. And that's why Emmett was murdered. That is her purpose, to inform us about this. So honestly, I know that this sentence you already highlighted green, but I would take my blue highlighter and I would just kind of underline it again, because as you read, note the racial climate of the South in which Emmett Till was killed. I kind of want to use this sentence again because it's really good for what I need. It's talking to me that the racism in the South was bad, and that's why Emmett was killed, and that's what our author is trying to inform us about. It's the perfect piece of evidence to highlight. So now I need another one. I think this one would work really well. When the mom told Emmett that he needed to make sure to behave himself around the white people down there, and Emmett said that he would. So his mom is warning him. So that is Jessica McBurney's way of letting us know that the mom even tried to warn Emmett about the South and that he had to be careful. So those would be two pieces of evidence. And I think I found something on the second page that I'll show you. Right. Oh, my bad. No, third. Right where it says, oops, I'm tired. This quote. Wait. There we go. You can highlight this blue. I'm tired of him sending your kind down here to stir up trouble. I'm going to make an example of you, just so everybody can know how me and the folks stand. That is a quote from, I'm looking really quick, Bryant and Milam, the two men that killed Emmett. They said this. They said that they were going to make an example, and I think that shows the ugliness in the South, that they were going to kill him because of that silly thing he did. So you could highlight that blue. That also definitely shows the purpose. But remember, we only needed two. So now that we've highlighted two examples in blue, we can actually be done with this one. All right, so for speaker, remember you need your orange, and we need to find two pieces of evidence. So the speaker, in my opinion, is very, very easy. It's the author's name, and her name is Jessica. You can look at the article and copy this yourself. McBurney. And so now I have to go find two pieces of evidence that shows this author and highlight it orange. So I think all of you can agree that we will highlight her name. And the person who published and helped hire Jessica and is part of helping her assign articles and producing them is Common Lit. So I realize that you already may have highlighted it green. So maybe you take your orange highlighter and circle it. You know, when you have one piece of evidence that's going to be used for two different spaces on the soapstone, you can underline, circle, just mark the same sentence, but circle it, underline it, do something different to it. But they definitely can be used more than once. And that will take care of our speaker. All right, next we're going to work with tone. So grab the purple highlighter. And we've dealt with tone before. And, this is when you're trying to figure out what is the author's attitude towards the subject that she is writing about. How does the author feel about Emmett Till? And I can pretty much assume that all of you would agree with me that there isn't going to be anything humorous about Emmett Till, that she's in fact quite the opposite. She's very serious. It's going to be factual. And I wrote down, I kind of felt like Jessica was calm because she is taking her time and she's retelling a story that has great importance. So I felt like Jessica did this in a very organized and calm manner. So these are, some examples of tone. And now I'm going to go back into the article with my purple highlighter, and I'm going to find at least 2 examples that would show tone. So let's go back to the beginning of the article. Remember, she's retelling a story, so it's very factual. So we're going to be looking for things that would show a story. In my mind, when a writer writes a story, they're going to have transitions. So I see one right here that you could highlight purple. It says earlier in the week. That is a transition. She's telling a story. So earlier in the week, and then she would continue with her story. Accounts vary as to. So here's another transition. These seem to be more like transition kind of phrases. If I turn the page, the word interview lets me know that it's going to be factual. Can you see that right here? I feel like maybe if I zoom in better. The word interview, I would definitely highlight because that would show that it was factual. According to a later, include that. That's another transition. I felt that just 1 year later would be a great transition. Throughout the interview, 2 years later. So you get the point. She is being serious and factual. She's retelling a story. So I felt that those phrases would show and prove her tone of it being factual. All right. So there you have it. We have discussed, basically, I'll show you my answer key that's in my handwriting. We have discussed the subject. This is in review. You used pink for occasion, green for audience, blue for purpose, orange for the speaker, and purple for the tone. These colors are never going to change. These will always be the colors that you use when you do a soapstone. So the next time that I ask you to do a soapstone to an article you've never read, it would be very smart of you to get this out, because this is now your notes. And when you have to do the next one by yourself, you're going to need this paper to help remember which soapstone letter gets which color, because the colors have been specifically assigned. So make sure this goes in the notes section of your binder, and you don't want to lose this. In addition to which colors have been assigned to which parts of the soapstone, you're also going to be using this for notes that you will use to help kind of guide and model you through the next time you have to do this annotation to an article by yourself. So go ahead and take this copy, take your article and that you highlighted in. It's already hole punched for you, and you can put this in the notes section of your binder. And you now have a perfect model and example of a soapstone.